All right. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Conversation with a Millionaire. I'm your host, Jason Brown, the Charlotte agent, and I'm so glad to have our guest with us today, my good friend, Mr. Brian Kovaleski. How are you doing, Brian?
Doing great, buddy. Always good to see you.
Always great to see you. Brian and I have, oh gosh, how many years have we been working together?
I was just about to look it up. It's 10 plus, I think.
Whew,
Yeah.
man, that should let everyone know just how excellent of a loan officer you are, and I wouldn't be working with Brian if I didn't trust him, and I would also regard him as a good friend. We've had various conversations outside of real estate and lending and wealth generation, and he's just an all-around great guy. So, welcome, Brian. For our listeners, go ahead and give them a little introduction of yourself.
So my name's Brian. I grew up in Panama City, Florida, spring break capital of the world, at least back then. I uh, I went to college in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and then after college, I moved to California briefly and started my mortgage career actually as an underwriter. So I've been an underwriter, I've been a processor, and then I got into sales when I moved back to Charlotte, North Carolina, a little over 20 years ago, 21, 22 years ago. Got into the sales side. I was an account executive for a while, was a mortgage broker for a while, went to being just a straight lender. Now I'm back to being a mortgage broker.
Very good. Very good. So, we'll have this on the podcast for audio, but for those joining us and watching on YouTube, Facebook, or LinkedIn, if you see me looking down, it's just because I'm writing notes and I'm also checking to see what comments and questions that we have coming in from our viewers and listeners. If you would like to ask Brian a question, you're more than welcome to put in the comment section, or you can actually join us live and you don't have to use video. I know a lot of people are camera shy. I can bring you on uh, just with your audio. So if you're on Facebook or YouTube or LinkedIn, just check the comment sections for that link. Okay, Brian, let's get into it. I was talking with one of the attendees for our the table group that I've been doing, which has been a great success. And one of them said, "I was sitting beside a millionaire and I didn't even know it." And and it still is very astonishing to people that millionaires are not all flashy. They don't wear their net worth, on their forehead. They're some of the most down to earth or just low key kind of a people. Now, you said you grew up in Florida.
Mhm.
A lot of the listeners and viewers are always interested in millionaires. Were you a great student, let's say in high school up to college? Were you like straight A's and, valedictorian and all that stuff?
I was a great student through high school, straight A's all the way through. Got to college, I maybe partied a little too hard, but made it out of there and learned some great things in college. Met some great people in college, but my path to building, I guess, kind of retirement wealth is how I look at it. I mean, really would not have been required to do any of that. There's people 10 times as successful, 100 times what I have that, don't have that sort of background. It's really if you show up and you work hard, you're going to see results. And the work is very rarely sexy. There's nothing sexy about making cold calls. There's nothing sexy about putting on a mask and touring a beat up house or something like that. But if you just do the work and you just keep doing it, you just keep showing up, something's going to happen for you. And I would absolutely be remiss if I didn't uh, say that I stood on the shoulders of giants. I have a dream team that helped me every step of the way. I had mentors, people that I now call my friends, and I keep leveling up that group. It started with just me and a realtor a long time ago. You and I don't think knew each other yet, but started with a
Okay.
realtor a long time ago, and grew to a property manager slash handyman that I could trust. So just bringing people into my sphere that I trust, and then okay, that kind of ran its course. I need to level up. So, okay, well, I'm going to go join a mastermind now, and I'm going to have other people that have achieved what I want to achieve and learn from them. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. I keep in touch with my sphere and my dream team, and we have a big steak dinner every once a year and just catch up. But
Mhm.
I'm also part of this. Now I'm into apartment complexes, so a mastermind group for that, and you just keep growing. Just you stay uncomfortable, keep growing, keep pushing yourself, and you just keep doing that. I think really anyone can do it.
That's awesome. And I see we have Sid Chase. Uh, Sid Chase has been on the show twice. Great, great man, millionaire, and he built his retirement wealth with real estate as well. He's owned several companies and had several ventures. So, Sid, if you can hear us, I'll let you get settled and we'll bring Sid in on the conversation in a second. So, you mentioned mentors, you mentioned your dream team. Let me first ask the question, when did you get the that bug or that conviction to start building what you have perfectly termed as retirement wealth?
Well, my family has been involved in real estate since I was a child. So, and their portfolios down in Florida, but I was always around it. I was always exposed to it, of owning rentals and managing properties like that. I knew what the benefits were. I knew what the potential was there. When I got to Charlotte, I was in my mid 20s, early 20s, and again just kind of was more interested in going out and hanging out with friends and chasing girls and all that fun stuff. And then I settled down a little bit, and I was like, man, I really got to get started on this thing. And then parents are, we're a good little bug in the ear too, like, where's your rentals, what are you doing? I'm like, it's not magic. And they're like, well, if it's not magic, go do it, show us.
Right.
So I finally pulled the trigger. Again, I had an agent who was willing to show me kind of the investment side of, not buying just a primary residence, but showing me the investment side of things too. And saved up a little bit of money, and the numbers worked out. So I got started. I think I bought my first house in 2016. So about 8 years ago.
Okay. So you bought your first house in 2016.
Yeah.
What was the cost of that home and
Ooh.
how much cash, if you can remember, did you have to put down on it?
I don't know if these numbers are going to be relevant anymore, but it was
They won't be. Trust me.
no,
They won't
no.
be.
It was it's in North Charlotte, so just north of the city, and it was an $85,000 home, 3 bedroom, 2 bath. I knew I wanted one of those going into it, and so investment property. You need 15% down minimum, and 5 grandish for closing cost. It was pretty turnkey, so I didn't really have to do a lot of renovating to it. So the first one, I got pretty lucky, and I think right off the jump, we started renting it out and maybe clearing 150, $250 a month. So and just stockpiled that and kept earning money in my day job, and went and looked for the next one.
Excellent. I'm going to bring Sid to the stage. How's it going, Sid?
Hey man, how are you? I'm good.
What's going on? I tell you, I got
Um,
two guys, two heavy hitters when it comes to the real estate portfolios in the room.
You keep good company.
there
Oh
you
yeah.
go.
It's Sid. I have your book right here. I can't wait to get you back on for, I guess I should say 2.1, 2.2, so we can continue. In the last broadcast, episode 6, Sid was teaching us about alternative investments. And Sid, really quickly for our listening and watching audience, Tell them about that alternative investment that you have going on right now, and then we'll jump back to Brian.
Sure. Hey, Brian, it's nice to meet you.
You said,
So, the alternative investment that I'm doing right now is actually farming on my own land. So we're now we bought 33 acres, and we are producing everything from pigs to processing pigs, chickens, quail, beef, cattle, and goats, and selling them. We chose to sell to the public. You could go to market with those, but we're not doing that. So people actually come here to the farm. We're located about 20 minutes just outside of Myrtle Beach, so we're in a heavily kind of populated area. We're on the edge of where they allow farming, and right now that's working great for us.
Awesome. Awesome. So, Brian, you had mentioned mentors, coach, mastermind group. We're about to get to the day that you realized that you were a millionaire. But building up to that, it seems that though you had parents that were in the real estate business in terms of buying and holding, you were somewhat groomed for it in a sense. And you can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but you still needed mentors. You're still joining mastermind groups because you had a lot to learn. Was it your parents that told you, hey, you need to start linking up with people who are doing this? You need to start building that dream team? Or did you already instinctually know that's what you need to do?
it was me on my own. I knew I was ready for it. I knew it was time. I wish, as I'm sure most people do, I would have started earlier. So, like I said, I mean, you don't need to be going out all the time in your 20s. Start sooner. You'll be light years ahead of anyone else. But no, I knew it could be done. I knew I could do it, and it was just time to put my money where my mouth was and do the work.
Excellent, excellent. Now, Sid, you can jump in on this as well because many people say, oh, yeah, I need a mentor. And that's an admirable thing to search for, to acquire. But I believe there's a difference between a mentor and a coach. And Sid, I know that you've done a little bit of both. Where would you draw the line between a mentor and a coach?
For me, a mentor is somebody who's going to let you sit at the table and teach you and guide you along the way, and not necessarily ask for anything in return. Where a coach is going to be just the opposite.
They're definitely going to ask for something. So it's that, pay me for my time kind of element to that. Is that what you would say?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, very good. Brian, have you had coaches slash mentors, or they kind of overlapped for you?
I have had both, and I think Sid hit the nail on the head. In my professional life, I've had coaches. Here's how you run a mortgage business. Here's how you build and grow that. On the personal investment side, I've gravitated more towards mentors. So that's probably the split for me there.
Right. And I was watching, of course, I'm on YouTube, and you have these reels or shorts that are suggested to you. And there's a gentleman that I particularly like and follow a lot of his things. And he said the distinguishing thing between a mentor and a coach was his mentors don't have a lot of time to sit there and teach him and walk him through things. They're more so positioned in his life that if he has a question, if he's stuck in a particular area, he can call them generally within 24 hours. They'll call him back, if not sooner. They'll ask a couple questions and then give a solution or a proposed direction. They'll respond to it, and then it's on this way. The mentor is someone you have there along the way that you can check in with, versus a coach, much like what Sid said, is someone that you're paying for the time. They probably have resources that they may have created for you, They have exercises, books for you to read. You have a scheduled meeting with them that is on some type of repetitive cycle. Would you say that? Would you say to that, Sid? What do you think? Is that
I agree.
right?
I agree. The coach is going to have you on a timeline, and you know, you could almost put the mentor, well, sorry, the coach as almost a lawyer in those terms, right? So he's going to put you on a timeline, whatever the case may be, and he's going to ask for those dollar bills every time he needs something and you need something. And again, the mentor is not going to do that. Now the mentor might want to share a deal with you. He might be your, forgot that name of that. I think it was the Millionaire, where you get to call somebody a lifeline.
Lifeline,
So
right?
he may be your lifeline, or an insurance policy, and any of those terms will work. He may even want to share on the deal with you. And that's the way. It's not a way for him to make money. He doesn't really need to make money from you. It's your way, as the student, as an appreciation for what he's done for you, to allow him to play a part in the investment if he wanted to.
Right. Most definitely. I love it. So, Brian, what was the day that you realized that you had hit the $1 million net worth mark?
I don't know. It was probably a Tuesday or something. I was, it's real estate. So every now and then, once a month, I'm paying the bills. I'll say, okay, well, what does Zillow think my house is worth? And then you just, you work out the difference, but you've got enough houses and you add it all up and you're like, oh, okay, well, that's interesting. Doesn't really do me anything right now. It's just kind of locked up in there, but it's nice to say. It's nice to have on paper. I'd rather have it than not have it.
And how many properties did you acquire before you hit that net worth?
It was probably eight or nine
8 or 9.
properties. Yeah,
And how many properties are you up to now?
25.
25 properties. And Sid, Sid,
Okay.
why are you laughing, Sid?
I'll tell you after you answer me. Say what you were going to say.
So, well, I was actually about to bring you in on that because Brian
Okay.
is a loan officer. So we're going to do a quick deep dive as to his strategies that he's using on the lending side so that he can continually put himself in position over and over again to acquire these properties. But why do you chuckle there, Sid?
Because my oh shit moment was 59 properties, and
Yeah.
I woke up at that point, Brian, and it was like I just created myself a monster nightmare, self-employed job. What the heck am I doing? And but I was lucky enough to, and everybody's heard this story, but I'll say the short version for Brian. I was speaking in Australia, Sydney, Australia, on my first book, getting investors to invest in the United States from Australia. And I was on stage and I woke up and said, oh my gosh, Australia's in a bubble. I need to go home and sell everything I did. And so I did. I actually did do that. I sold
Wow.
every piece of property I had except for the one I lived in, and one other one. And I took all that money and then I leaped from real estate into businesses and alternative assets. And not that real estate is a real alternative assets, but I went in other directions as well. And so yeah, that's why I was laughing, because he hasn't hit the oh shit moment yet.
Were you using a property manager? Or were you doing it yourself?
I used a property management company many a times, and never found one that would do anything right. And they always wanted to nickel and dime me. So being the entrepreneur that I thought my mindset was, hey, I can start up my own property management company. So, which I did. And that's how I generated the cash for it on my own properties. Then I started offering that service to other investors, and I'd rather do their houses than do my houses.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. That's
I've
funny.
heard that before. People, my own parents, I'm like, well, you know what to do. Why are you pushing back? They're like, you don't want to manage it yourself. And, what excuses has anyone heard from why someone doesn't want to buy an investment property, right? I don't want to unclog toilets at 2 a.m. I was like, well, I don't either. I don't do any of that. The
Right.
dream team does that. The manager does that.
Yep.
If he's got a big expense, he bounces it off me. If not, they just take care of it. Send me the money.
Right. And it's all, it's everybody's, risk and self, I don't know. It's whatever you can handle. Me, I didn't want to go that route after a while. I just realized it wasn't for me, and I didn't want to create that job. And so I just sold that part of the property
50
management
doors
company.
is a lot, Sid. I mean, that's a heck of a lot, man.
What's that again?
50 doors you said you had?
No, 59, 50. I think it was 59 houses and probably close to 100 doors.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, a bunch of them were duplexes and triplexes, fourplexes. I never went over fourplex. Obviously, that's a whole different conversation, and so on and so forth. And Brian knows that's a different, lending and everything's different for that. But
right.
So I always stayed underneath that. But I'm not trying to take away anything from Brian on the show. I just enjoyed real estate's great. I've flipped thousands of homes over the last 35 years, but I just enjoy the business side of things and the alternative investments, from gold to silver to timber to farming to oil, whatever it may be. And that just excited me more. There's nothing wrong with what Brian's doing, or if anybody wants to do what Brian's doing. I think that's the point is you got to start somewhere and just get going. And then as you're going down the yellow brick road, you'll find another path, that's always what happens.
Yeah. Most definitely. So, Brian, very quickly, and then we'll get into the strategies. Well, I guess this is part of the strategies now. You saved up money for your first home. Now, for those who are listening that have a home, they want to create an additional asset. How do they get to the second home?
So are they going to move into the second home, or they're just going to buy their first rental?
Let's talk about just buying their first rental.
So I bought all.
Let's make it more interesting. Let's say that they're
buying. Spice up, Sid?
Let's say, I'm going to test the guy. Come on now. No, I'm just busting your chops, Brian. Let's say that it's a duplex and they want to live in one half and rent out the other.
Yeah. Yep. I was going to go to that next, but yeah.
Is that their first house? That's the first house they're going to buy?
Yeah, it's their first house. They're coming out of an apartment of their own. They've saved up enough money to get down payment. They've listened to Brian. Brian's podcast was amazing, and now they're ready to move on and buy their first property.
That's a wonderful strategy. And if I could do it over again, I might have done something like that. Charlotte itself, I don't know. Jason, you'll know this. I mean, Charlotte didn't really have a ton of multifamily, like duplexes, triplexes, stuff like that. There's some, but certainly not as much as single family. So maybe I felt that locally, and I only wanted to invest locally, that opportunity didn't present itself to me. But absolutely, if it exists, that would be the way to go, because you're going to get owner-occupied financing, which is a smaller down payment, less money out of pocket. You're going to get better interest rates, and you can repeat that so you have a very healthy portfolio. So if you can find the house to do that in, absolutely go do it. I'm not terribly handy with a hammer and nails, so fixing it up myself, was that an option? Maybe not, debatable, but you can have someone else, fix it up for you. And certainly just the financing aspect alone of cheaper down payment, cheaper interest rates, and you get to keep that cheaper interest rate as you go do the next one and you move into the next one and the next one. I see, articles and stuff about the Burr model, right? But instead of, just renovating or whatever, people are actually moving on to the next house. And some people have daisy chained, 4, 5, or 6 primary residences in a row, and they're multifamily. So, now they've got a 20-something portfolio, 20-door portfolio as well. And all they did was, move around when you're when you're able to. And again, going back to it, something like that can be a lot easier when you're younger and possibly single,
Right.
having a significant other or starting a family is like, hey, baby, let's go move around to a new construction zone once a year. That can be a hard sell, not impossible, but yeah, I love everything that you're suggesting. That's definitely the optimal way to do it, but everyone's
Well,
going to
I would say if the partner's on board, it's time to get her off or him off the train and get a new partner on the train. But I'll leave that as is, right? We won't go there any farther than that. What I did hear in all of that, between the two of you saying what you were saying, is I heard a business opportunity in there. So if I'm correct, both of you agreed that there's not a lot of duplexes, triplexes, or fourplexes in Charlotte. So
Correct.
now I got my realtor over here, the guy with the millionaire in the making, so he can find us some land. I think you can help fund that land, and I definitely know how to build homes and rehab and all of that. So now all we need is the investors to buy them. I think we all need to talk.
There we go.
I think you're right.
There you go. That's how a dream team forms.
Exactly.
Everyone's pulling in the same direction. That's how it starts.
Yep.
And that's one of the things that I'm going to go into in another podcast is when you're starting early, you don't have such a longer, I would say, not as long of a list of stipulations and restrictions. What do I mean by that? If you're a young man or a young woman starting out, and let's say you're single, you're not married, you're in a position to where you're not trying to get the 4-bedroom home, the 5-bedroom home. You can go for that duplex, that 2 bedrooms, 1 full, maybe a half bath. You can acquire that property, live in it for a year, right, Brian? And then immediately move on to the next one. Now, let's say someone were able to do that with their duplex that they purchase. How would they then purchase the next one if they used an FHA loan for that first one?
We're only going to have, generally speaking, you're only going to have one FHA loan at a time. But the difference between FHA and conventional is only 1.5% down payment. So you go from a 3.5% down payment to a 5% down payment. All right, you save up a little bit of extra money, certainly cheaper than a 15 to 20% down payment on a normal investment property. So it won't be too far off. It won't be too far off from what you did the first time around.
And once they find that second property, and then I'll get right back to you, Sid. Once they find that second property they want to move on, how do they juggle getting the approval for that if they have not found a tenant as of yet for their initial current duplex property?
If you haven't found a tenant yet, you need to qualify to carry both housing payments at the same time. And some people do, especially dual income households, with minimal bills. That's possible. I see a lot of that. Otherwise, you want to, talk to a good property manager, such as yourself, quickly and find someone that can sign a lease that'll go into effect and they can make that initial deposit. And then you'll get credit for a portion of that rent to offset the house payment that you have.
Now, Sid, as you were accumulating the properties in your portfolio, quick question for you. Were you living in the initial properties? Remind me. I think we may have touched on it in our first interview. Were you living in initial property and then you lived in the second one and the third one? How did that go?
No. So what I did was a little bit different. I started flipping houses first before I started renting.
That's right. I do.
Right.
I do remember now.
Yeah. I spent a year flipping. I think my first full year, if I remember, was 12 houses I flipped. I flipped those. And then at that point, I started beginning. My English is shot. I'm not, unlike you, Brian, I'm not sophisticated. I only have a 10th grade education. Okay, brother. All right. So in English was not a class I attended very often. But anyway, I started flipping first. Then that got me to be known by folks, and I started getting investors coming to me who wanted rental incomes. So they were partnering with me on these rental
Gotcha.
incomes. Is what was happening, and that's how I started building my portfolio of properties that way. But my real love was flipping houses. That was my real love.
You
And
have that
Brian,
skill set. I didn't have that skill set.
yeah. Now, Brian, if I own a property, and then after this question, we're going to jump ahead to today's pricing, today's interest rate, and how people can use your strategy, given that it's much higher than it was so many years ago. Because you said it was 8 years ago when you bought your first property,
Yeah, 2016.
2016. Okay,
Right. Yeah.
so when they acquire the first property, should they be borrowing against that property in order to acquire the next one, or trying to make a quick equity grab and that use that money as their down payment for the next one?
Well, I don't know that borrowing against it in the near term is going to be the way to go, because you're taking cash out of a rental property. So you already had to put, let's say, 15% down. Just
Mhm.
keep the conversation simple. I mean, you're not going to be able to pull out quite even that much on a cash out refinance. So how, if you're trying to do one of these every 6 months or 12 months, because you're going to hit the pavement running, like how much equity do you really have to pull out? You could sell it, but if you're going to sell it, you'd be better off doing what Sid did, which is taking a house and putting value into it and then flipping it. I know people that if it feels like we started out in the same place and they're light years ahead of me because they built up a big head of steam from flipping houses. You get a lot more profit from flipping houses than the little $200 a month that I was getting, right? And now they've kind of turned that big daisy chain chunk of money over into rentals. So, it depends what your preferred flavor is. I don't have the skill set that Sid has to go in and either do the work myself, probably not even manage the people that do the work, because other than having them show up on time, I don't know what goes into their job, right? I've got to stay in my lane with what I know. So for me, I was like, okay, the way I do it is it's just numbers. It's not an additional skill set. But if you've got that additional skill set, then what Sid did would I think put you on the path faster, be my opinion.
I have a quick question for you, Brian.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know the answer at all. That's why I'm asking, and I'm not sure if you would, because it may not be your specialty. But if there's somebody's a military person, they have VA availability to use their VA. Can they use the VA to construct a duplex, live in one side?
I think you can. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Mhm.
not sure about the VA rules, but I was just curious about that, because if I'm correct, and I'm trying to reach that niche group of people here that may be listening over time, that if you can do that, I'm pretty sure the VA asks for a least amount of money down, less money down.
Correct. Yeah, they're 100% financing. That's an excellent question, because I do VA people all day, every day, but and we've done new construction for them as well. But no one has really approached me about building a duplex or a triplex or something like that. I think you could.
Okay.
I would have to double
That's a
check.
great
Yeah.
point that you bring up, Sid, because even if they're not a VA, if you're just an individual that can secure the financing to construct a
Mm-hmm.
duplex, for example, the Charlotte area, we don't have a lot of duplexes, triplexes, quads.
Right.
So if they can secure the financing for the lot and the construction of a duplex, that would be an awesome way to go. Now, I have seen, and Brian, I don't know if you've been in this area that I'm about to mention, but in the NoDOT area, North Davidson area, there have been builders that have come in, said, as of lately, over the last, let's say, 7 years, these older homes, this area has just been shooting up in its value. But they've taken these older, dated homes, totally demolished them. And what they do build on that lot, especially if they can get the lot next to it or the lot behind it, is a duplex or a triplex.
Mm-hmm.
And I have seen more and more builders doing that. And it's a great model if someone can secure the financing for that. But how would they do? How there's so many people who are just knocked out of the runnings here because of the pricing of
Yeah. Yeah.
cost
Well,
of,
you're on the higher peak, and I know you guys are getting ready to go there with an example of today's
yeah,
pricing.
go for it.
You know, and so it's a little bit more difficult now. But and Brian may know this better than I do. If Julie was here, she would know this for sure. You know the broker side of her, but the rents aren't going to go back down, right? So the rents are going to stay up. The key would be if you bought a place now that, in my opinion, would be overpriced, right? Because we're just up there with the sky right now. We're touching the stars. But if you could build one, you're going to have a lot less maintenance. You're going to have a lot less headaches with it. It's going to be easier, probably. Well, it's not always easier to get a loan on a new construction than it is an old one, depending on or an existing home. But there's a lot of advantages to doing a build. So the only thing I would think of is that as the rates come down, and Brian's going to know this, how many times can I lower my rate throughout a period of time? You would need to make sure you're lowering your rate to be able to compensate for when the market does come down some. Because I don't think like here in Myrtle Beach, we have Bank of America's in here, JP Morgan's in here, BlackRock is in here, all the big players are in here, and they're buying up and building everything that they can and using it as lease or rentals. They're not selling because they know something. So they know something, right? They know something because that's not their business, right? So they know something's going on. So if they're doing it, then I would say that the public, I don't say somebody with no experience maybe that needs some help, but that I think is a good idea. But you got to be able to lower those interest rates as the Fed lowers them. And so how many times, Brian, can I do that with, and how often, or how does that work? I'm not sure how to ask the question.
That's
so
an
a
excellent
couple
question.
of a couple of points on I think your train of thought, specifically with the VA. So what a lot of people don't think about when they're doing VA new construction, you go buy an existing house, it's 100% financing, get the seller to pay your closing costs, you got a free house essentially, right? You think it works the same way on new construction, and it generally does. It's still 100% financing, but most investors are going to want you to have reserves and put those reserves into the upfront loan, because to build a house, that's 9 months of risk for the investor. So we'll have veterans saying, I want to build a house. I was like, great. Do you have 5 or 10%? He's like, don't worry about it. I've got 100% VA financing. I was like, yes, you do. And they're going to give you 100%, but you need to have up to 10% on top of that in case there's cost overruns, labor overruns, supply overruns. The lender's not going to be left holding the bag for 9 months. Anything could happen in 9 months.
Correct.
But if that were to work out, if you were just doing a VA refinance, VA or FHA, very roughly, you could refinance about twice a year, a little less than that, but about twice a year. So you could keep pace with it. But at a certain point, again, if we're talking about VA, you're going to want to get out of that VA loan to probably, you tell me, replenish your benefits, right? And go do this again?
Correct.
Okay, so if you do that, now you're talking about, what are you going to do? A conventional refinance. And then your rates are not going down. Your rates are going up and away. Because when they reprivatized Fannie and Freddie, they're like, okay, well, how are we going to make money, right? We don't want to kick everyone in the teeth on primary interest rates. So we're going to keep those low and competitive, but we're going to charge them an arm and a leg and a kidney on a second home and an investment property. So interest rates now, and not just the interest rates, the rates are obviously higher, but the cost of those interest rates, the points and fees that you have to pay are so much higher now because of Fannie and Freddie that it really needs to be a part of your calculus, your calculation to say, okay, well, what rent am I getting? How much do I owe? My rate's going to go up because I'm not going to get an owner occupied VA loan anymore. What does this new financial piece of it look like?
And so when I come back to you for my second property, whether it's a duplex or a single, but how much of the rental am I going to be able to use in income towards my next purchase? How much are you going to look at?
I think it's what, 70%, 75% can go towards your debt to income ratio, right?
You are correct. It depends on if it's on your taxes yet or not. So it depends on how fast you're trying to get into that next one. If someone wanted to do that today, and we need Jason to go find someone to get a lease so we can wash that payment, whatever he writes a contract for, whatever his lease is for, the investor is going to get 75% of that money to wash it. So if we have someone, their current mortgage payment is $750. When I'm talking to Jason, I'm like, listen, if this is this person's investment strategy, you have to go sign a lease for $1,000 to perfectly wash out that payment, because you're going to get 75% of that, which is $750. It offsets the payment. And then it's like they don't even have that debt. Now they're just trying to go qualify for the new house.
Right.
If you own that rental and you wait and you do your taxes in April of next year, then you get credit for whatever you have on your taxes. And a lot of your deductions are just paper deductions that can be added back in. So you get the best of both worlds. You do need to be careful with it, but you get to add back in depreciation, your taxes, your insurance, your mortgage interest. So it's all these things that minimize your tax liability on paper, but can count for more income when you're going to buy that next one. You just want to be careful that you're not, writing off maintenance fees and repairs and stuff like that. Things like that you can spend a fortune on, but that doesn't get added back into your income. So higher tax strategies, it's not overly complicated, but you definitely want to be familiar with that Schedule E form.
Okay.
Yeah. So Brian, you had mentioned the depreciation, and there's a lot of content across social media platforms where there's a lot of talk about claiming the depreciation of that improvement, meaning structure, home. Is by doing that, can that come back to bite you in some ways? Maybe if you were trying to lend against it, I think it may have some repercussions. But is that generally speaking a good thing to do, is to claim as much depreciation as you can?
Well, they allow you to do a couple of different things with depreciation. So you could depreciate your whole house over 5 years and get a massive write-off. But why? What's the purpose of that? I mean, you would minimize your tax bill for a few years, but if you're going to be buy and hold and you use up all your depreciation, like, okay, well, now I don't have that tax deduction anymore. Gotcha. I myself, on most of my things, I do straight line depreciation, which I think is 27 and a half years. You take the value and then you get, that percentage every year. And all it does is minimize your tax liability. It doesn't shoot you in the foot for mortgage income qualifying purposes, because that's just a paper loss, and they know that, so they'll add that back in. So you get to show Uncle Sam reduced income and pay taxes on reduced income, but it doesn't hurt you. It gets added back into your income when you go to do a mortgage loan.
Because you still have the cash flow that you're generating from your property. Sid, when you came back from Australia and you saw that bubble, so you immediately liquidated your assets, did you sell that portfolio or huge chunks of that portfolio to another investor, or did you have to go about them individually over time?
Well, one is, first of all, to answer your question, no, it was individual to homeowners.
Okay.
To mostly now my duplexes and my fourplex that I owned, some of those went to investors, but the majority of everything I owned went to private homeowners. I probably, being who I am, I would have had a difficult time trying to sell a package to somebody knowing what I know, what I felt I knew, that the crash was coming to the U.S. That
gotcha.
And I know I'm saying that's 20/20 hindsight, whatever, but you've known me long enough to know I am as a person. I
Right.
would that would have been a tough sale for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Brian, you grew your portfolio in just 8 years, which is amazing. Are you continuing to buy property now? If so, are you still zeroed in Charlotte area, or are you buying outside the state?
I'm looking anywhere that I can get to in about a day. So, I'm from Florida. If I had to, I could drive to Florida in a day. I would probably fly there. So, my buy box right now is probably anywhere from Virginia down to Florida, as far west as Kentucky, but nowhere near the coast for insurance reasons.
Oh my goodness, that's
Oh yeah,
just sad.
insurance.
That's
Good.
even sad to hear that. There's that's just wrong. Come
What,
on now.
what do you
It's
want me to
happening,
do? You
man.
go buy it.
It's those
So
places along the coastline that the hurricanes come through each year. It's getting to the point where some companies won't even give you insurance
yeah.
for certain
So if
properties,
you're in
right?
Myrtle, yeah, your insurance is going to be much higher. The closer you are to the beach here, the more you're going to pay in property management services and everything else. But so we kind of drew the line here. Now I'm buying for other investors,
Okay.
helping them find homes, and I'm building houses for investors that they can rent, right? So, but what we've done is now we're pretty much east. We try to stay east of the intercoastal waterway, or west of the intercoastal waterway or west of the Waccamaw River. So if you're west of the Waccamaw River, you're still within 20 minutes of Myrtle Beach,
Right.
and it's more farming kind of thing, and everything's normal here. So where I'm at, everything is normal. But if you go 15 minutes east of me, everything's turned upside down. It's a different. I mean, I get what Brian's saying. Yep, and I don't
Gotcha.
blame him. I wouldn't do it either.
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
It's
it's not like it was. Just so you know, I'm sitting here out on the farmyard with two of my Great Pyrenees that are playing around in the corner of the fence here. But they let's see, where are they?
Oh
There
yeah,
they are.
there they are.
There they are.
I see them.
Yeah, there they are. So 15, 20 years ago, Brian and I, we could have got away with being on the beach and not have any issues with that at all.
Exactly.
But today's a
Exactly.
different story. And you don't really, yeah, you get to be on the beach. I own a property on the beach, or I own a rental unit on the beach. I'm all that in a bag of chips, kind of thing. But at the end of the day, it's really not worth it. Besides the price of the property management or the Airbnb that's going to cost you, the insurance is going to cost you, some maintenance upkeep's going to cost you. So you got to pay HOA fees or POA fees or whatever they're going to be. And at the end of the day, a lot of those people get into those things, go not knowing, right? And then they turn around and sell them within a year or two because they find out that they're losing their shorts. Or it's somebody who's got deep enough pockets and just buying the property out in cash or very close to it. And now they're wiping out a lot of those issues. And because if you're in cash, you don't have to have, we'll say, like a car, full coverage, right? So there's a way to play that game, but you got to have deep pockets to play that. In
Right.
my opinion.
Right.
Well,
Now-
and everything you said assumes that there even is a cost, because, like, to your point, like you said a few years ago, like, okay, well, the insurance is going to be higher. I'll just charge a little bit more in rent. But now you see, as there's these more, I don't know how you want to phrase it, but environmental disasters and storms and things like that, you've seen insurance companies pulling out of, states like Florida, Hurricane or Tornado Alley in the Midwest, stuff like that. Everything, 90% of what we've talked about here, I know you got some investors on yours, but we're talking about leveraging financing to buying these things, right?
So
It's
that's a
very hard
different
to just
game.
go buy some cash.
Right.
If you can't get insurance, you can't get a loan.
Right.
And it's not like, oh, okay, well, I can get insurance now, but they can take that away from you. Who here has ever had insurance where they said, hey, we're not renewing you. We're not insuring this anymore. Car, house, whatever it is, go find someone else. Well, if there's no one else, guess what? The mortgage company is going to take your house, or they're going to charge you triple for your insurance, and then your costs are way out of whack. So
Right. That
avoiding the
actually,
coast
Brian,
is not a silver bullet, but if you can minimize, if you're going to be long-term buy and hold and you can minimize your exposure to that, why? I would love to be on the beach too. I'm a beach guy, but
right. I can see that.
And one of the things I wanted to zero in on that, Sid, I know you did when we had your first interview, you told me you did it, and Brian, you're continuing to do it, is you're not quitting your day job, meaning that your source of income, though you've now acquired these properties, all the millionaires and I know continue to work. They have that consistent stream of revenue, and that revenue is funding the acquisitions. So you're still
Right.
in lending. Sid, I know you still had other businesses, but you still kept those businesses going, right? It's not like you hit $1 million net worth and then just, sat out on the beach with a pina colada, just getting a tan all day, right?
Yeah, no, I took my million, I put it into a money market account. I'm getting 5.25% on it. And yeah, man, I'm right now I'm actually in the Virgin Islands. You can see I'm in the Virgin Islands right now.
I don't think so with that with that farm. Oh my gosh. Right. So Brian, that gave you or positioned you to continue to purchase property because you also had a solid job and you're in sales. I would call mortgage lending sales.
absolutely.
So you're in sales, you're getting the commissions,
Mhm.
you're still working hard on that to
Mhm.
generate, let's say 100,000, 150, 200,000, whatever you were making through those years, but taking that money and immediately putting into property acquisition. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah, as best I can. So I'm lucky that me and my wife live pretty simply, so it's nothing too extravagant on the expenses side. So yeah, we have the luxury of being able to save up some money, and we also have the rental income coming in that is now can be stockpiled as well. To yeah, every year
Right.
or two we can go get that next acquisition and keep it growing.
And how many years, just so they'll know on a closing note, personal note, how many years have you been married, Brian and Sid? I want you to remind people how many years you've been with that lovely gal that I met.
15 years in November.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Awesome.
and
That's
she's been
good.
great. You?
So I 34.
Whew.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, yeah. I could call mine all kinds of stuff now, Brian, and get away with it. You got about 5 more years to go, and then you could get away with it.
It's always funny with the spouses. And said, I know you said like, well, maybe find another partner if they don't want to jump on this train. And it's always it was true for me. It's true for almost every investor that I help. And Jason, you help with a lot of those people too. But the first one or two, they're always like, well, why are we doing this? Like, I don't want to unclog toilets at 2. The whole toilets, like everyone's toilet goes out at 2 a.m. I don't know what it is, but like, but you get that third and the fourth one, and there starts to be that residual income, that free money
Oh, I
every
thought you
month.
were talking about third or fourth wives. I was like, how many wives are we going for before we find the one? Holy crow.
There you go.
I was
Third or
way
fourth
over
house.
there. I
That's
was
the
out,
way to
I was
ensure you
out
don't
left
have any
field, Brian.
money.
I was gone.
You're not wrong. You may not be wrong,
Oh my goodness.
but then they really get on board and they're like, oh, we could take a free trip to Europe. We can
Right.
buy something nice and we don't have to save up anything extra for it. So
Yeah.
then they really start to get on board and you start to get traction. Then you get a partner, and a teammate. And it's like, all right, well, where is the next one? What are we doing next? And it gets to be pretty exciting.
Right.
Especially if, and I've never been married, but especially if
We could
your
tell.
wife has a skill set that she can bring to the business as an asset to the business, right? Sid, you've talked about your wife. She just has awesome management skills. She knows how to deal with people from what you've said in your first interview and a little bit on the second one, doesn't that help, Sid, that they have a skill set that can be of value to what you're building?
Yeah, and I mean, look, guys that are out there, or ladies that are out there, or the other shoe here, you don't have to find somebody that has a skill set. You just have to find somebody who's willing to run with you.
Okay.
That's
Gotcha.
what it is, because
Gotcha.
the skill sets will come along as you two drive down that road together, and you'll know. My wife knows what my strengths are. I know what my weaknesses are. I think they're very few and far in between. She thinks there's a lot of them, but Brian's the same way. I understand that, but you figure those out. On a serious note, you figure those out between the two of you, and then you start capitalizing on those. And over time, the harmony comes in. The piano starts to play by itself. So all of those acronyms, and it all works for you, and you just run with it. The idea is you just got to have somebody who goes, I'm not going to sit on the couch and eat pom poms, popcorn, and watch Netflix every night. I want to get up in the morning, go to the gym, get my workout done, and what are we attacking today? Right? What is it we're going after? What's not what's for tomorrow, but what's for our future? That's what you need to look for. Now, if you get up every morning going, or go to bed every night going, how am I going to get through tomorrow? I just need to survive the week. You need a new mind wrap. You got to get your mind going in the right places, and and watching this show and other shows that are similar to it, and reading the right books are all great things. But you really need to find the mentors that can help you get there. Coaches are great, but at the bottom line, and sorry for any coaches that may be listening, they're not there for you, right?
Right.
Because they're making money, right? So you need to find somebody that goes like me. I mean, I've said this 100,000 times, that you go to my website and get a free 15-20 minute consultation, and I will talk to you about whatever you want me to talk to you about and how to get you going, right? And I'm sure Brian would do the same exact thing. And so that's the people that you're looking for. You're not looking for them to push all the buttons and get you to go up the elevator. They just need us to help open a door or two for them. And if they have
Right.
the rest, and she has the rest, or the other way around, then you just run with it from there.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like what you're describing is someone who's
I'm,
not a quitter.
I'm describing your next book because I'm done writing.
Yeah.
But just someone
Yeah.
that supports you,
Right.
just even,
Yeah.
what's helpful. If they don't even have to run beside you initially. If they just don't say, why are you running?
Right.
Just
Agreed.
keep that to yourself. Just let me do my thing and let me taste a little bit of success. And then you can jump on board, and then we'll do it together. So
Right. And it doesn't
the
matter
bar
if
is
it's
very low.
Exactly. And it doesn't matter if it's the wife or the husband that starts the running. It don't matter. It's just
Gotcha.
one of you needs to do it, and the other one needs to let that one, if you're unsure, let that one go. Let him or her run for a year or 2 years or whatever it is, and then watch and see what they're doing, and then bring your part to it. That's a great suggestion, Ryan.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So on that note, conversation with a millionaire, Brian and Sid said, marry someone who can run with you. Don't marry a quitter, and get your 2 Pyrenees at your house.
Yeah. Yeah. If
Appreciate
she's
you,
got
Brian Kowaleski, super duper lender, loan officer extraordinaire. Sid Chase, my man, Mr. Noble himself, alternative investments. We've had a great treat, 2 millionaires on episode 7, Conversation with a Millionaire. Thank you, gentlemen, so much. Sid, I'm going to get you some dates for you to come back on for 2.1. We're going to do some more diving into alternative investment. I'm just going to let you run the show, Sid, when you come on.
All right. I'm gonna. You guys coming out this weekend? I need to move some pigs.
Hey, I'm going to coach in that. I'll send you how much I charge.
All right, guys. Brian, it was a pleasure
right.
to meet you. I wish you
as
and your
well,
wife
Sid.
the best. I wish you guys the best in whatever you do. And if you want to reach out personally, be happy to talk and chat. And my man from Charlotte, keep doing your thing, man, because people are going to grab on the show and run with it, brother. You got it.
I appreciate it, Sid. Thank you so much, bro. And thank you so much, Brian Kowaleski, for coming on. Always a pleasure. And for those who don't know, we are doing our millionaire private dinner that's coming up in October.
October, early
And
October.
yep. And Brian's going to be there. We have another millionaire who made his money with home inspections and stock investments. Millionaire number 2 and 3 both have a great real estate portfolio. Millionaire number 4, Brian Kowaleski, over 20 properties. And I should have a fifth millionaire there who has made their money in providing medical services. So
Oh,
we're going to have a great conversation. That's just going to be a deep dive into a huge question and answer opportunity. So be looking out for more information on that millionaire dinner on YouTube, The Charlotte Agent. You can find me on Facebook, The Charlotte Agent, or Jason Brown. Thanks so much, Brian. We appreciate you, bud.
thanks, buddy. Always.
Thanks so much, man. Appreciate you. Talk to you now.
All right, buddy.
Thank you for joining, everyone, for joining in on the conversation. Please make sure you hit that subscribe button, like the video, drop a comment, share it. If there's a topic you would like me to discuss, drop that as well. We're family here on this platform. Appreciate all of y'all. You all be blessed. Peace.